Oh ho ho! It is time for my favorite fanfiction to read, Hands! But before I get started, just a quick announcement. I want to try to do something for Halloween, a special sort of reading or whatever. Not that it'd be really special. I would still just do a regular old reading, but instead I would do a grimdark story or something like that. So if any of you have a suggestion of some sort, some grimdark story, I should mention I'd prefer it to be a one-shot. It doesn't have to be, but I'd just prefer that. And the other requirement, well, not requirement, just something I'd prefer is that there aren't any other readings of it. Yeah, that's really it. So yeah, do it right now. Leave a comment, tell me what story I should read for Halloween. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. I'm not reading this until you do it. Not that there's anything I can do, because this is just a recording. Okay, I'm going to assume that you did it already. Okay, on to the story. So I will begin with some sort of extra chapter. I'm just assuming it's an extra chapter, since the name is Extras Number 1. So, yeah, gonna start with that. Extras Number 1. An interesting proposal, and a reason to keep your mouth shut or open, depending on your point of view. So, Andrew, Twilight said as she trotted into the library proper. I was sitting and reading a book peacefully, and looked up as she faced me. Yes, I asked. I was wondering if for our next date you'd like me to go as a human. Well, humanoid anyway, she said. I haven't perfected the transformation just yet. Well, sure, if you want, I said with a shrug and a smile. Sounds like it might be fun. Good, Twilight said, because I wanted to get your opinion of my human form. Her horn glowed, and then the rest of her did. Her form stretched and stood up on her back hooves, and her mane became longer. The glow faded, and I was left, staring at a stark naked, very hot purple-skinned girl. Her feet were still hooves, she still had a tail, her ears were still pony-like, and her horn remained in the center of her forehead, but trust me, none of that was an impediment. To many a human male, they would be bonuses. What do human women traditionally wear on their dates? Twilight asked. My jaw was to the floor. Sure, I'd seen her human form before, but that one hadn't been as polished, if you get my meaning. I looked up at the ceiling. What you've got on is totally fine by me. You mean naked? She asked curiously. You wear clothes, though. I coughed. Yes, though, Twilight scowled. You're just hemming and hawing because you're hoping I go on the day naked, aren't you? What? No, I said quickly. She hopped in my lap and scowled. I coughed and finally was unable to look anywhere into her stern eyes. I sighed and nodded. Yes I am, and also dreading it. Dreading it? Twilight asked, frowning. I coughed. Yes, awkwardness over sex and all that. I see, Twilight said thoughtfully. She shrugged. I guess I'll just have to go around like this until it's no longer awkward. She stood up and smiled brightly, crossing her arms under her breasts. How does that sound? Fine by me, I managed. She headed out, and I read the open book over my red-hot face. Why do I keep opening my mouth? I muttered. Fashion foibles. I'll admit it, I have paid attention to fashion, and I know more than a lot of other guys. It's primarily thanks to the fact my gay brother is a walking encyclopedia of fashion. Among other stereotypes of homosexuality taken to such a degree, it's like he stepped out of the Will and Grace just to annoy and offend straights and gays equally. Point is, I can appreciate dressing well, and I can appreciate wearing clothing, being human. It does not mean I'm fine with being a model of clothing and having to stand around for several hours being poked and prodded by a unicorn. Rarity, this is entirely unnecessary, I said once again. I got the feeling that it wasn't in her vocabulary. Oh, nonsense! An entire species that wears clothes most of the time. This is a dream come true, Rarity gasped. Why, your fashion must be far in advance of our own. It's wondrous. It's amazing. Your people are simply fantastic. Then use them for models, not me, I grumbled. The outfit I had on was a kind of green suit that looked like it belonged in The Wizard of Oz, or as a get-up the Eighth Doctor would find a bit old-fashioned. and I actually liked that doctor a lot. Rarity bustled around, pins and strings and measuring tape all floating around me like stars orbiting a black hole. I have no other models, dear, Rarity chuckled. Besides, don't you want to look your best? I assure you no human being anywhere else would be as finely attired as you. That would be comforting if I could just sit down, I begged. Nonsense, you stand upright, do you not? Yes, but not all the time. Oops, my apologies, please don't heal. God, oh, hey! Sorry, I... Crash. I poked my head out from a pile of mannequins and focused on the spinning world. Oh. Rarity huffed. Oh, wonderful. Now I'll have to start all over. She held up her needles. Come now, up you go. No way. Oh, come on, you big baby. Never. Hold it. So, I like the chocolate-covered ones, but Rainbow Dash says the caramel-flavored ones are better. Can you believe it? Pinkie Pie asked Twilight Sparkle as they trotted by the carousel boutique. The purple unicorn chuckled. I don't know, Pinkie. I like them both. Well, yeah, me too, but one better than the other? It's crazy talk. Absolute... Andrew burst out of the door of the shop, covered in strips of clothing and running for his life. Freedom! Rarity was right behind him. Get back here! The two ponies stared after this, before Pinkie Pie shook her head. So as I was saying... Alright, there's the extra chapter. Let's just move along to chapter 6. The human form of Twilight smirked at me across the bed, her legs crossed, but raised up so that her thighs were exposed to present a tantalizing hint of panties underneath her skirt. She had completed the transformation, for the most part. Her skin was still purple, and the horn still stuck out of her forehead, but otherwise she was the picture of an attractive young Homo sapiens. Really, if you're gonna resist sleeping with a girl because of her skin color, you're not just racist, you're stupid. And the horn on her head just made her look cuter. Now, I liked her pony form just fine, but her human form was just... sexy. In a way that didn't make me feel uncomfortable at all. You know, Andrew Shepherd, she said, playing with a lock of her hair, I'm still very much interested in human sexuality. She blushed deeply, but held that sexy smile of hers. And there's so much to learn, and I frankly would like to, and here she licked her lips, experiment with it. Well, I managed a comforted tone, smiling right back, though my head felt hot enough to combust. I'm more than happy to experiment with you. Good, she said brightly. I hope you don't mind if I include Fluttershy in our experiments. And down she came, literally angelic as the spell to make her mostly human had not taken away her wings. It had given her a dynamic figure, though, that was readily apparent thanks to her nakedness, and she blushed at my stare. Andrew, I really, really need you, she said. Now then, Twilight said, now wearing a director's hat while the animated camera began rolling. Action! Wait, you're recording this? I said, blinking. Isn't that a little forward? It's for science, Twilight declared. Fluttershy's the control subject. I'll be the actual test subject. But, and here her blush deepened, don't hold back with her. Okay. This was officially the greatest day of my life. Well, okay, the greatest day of my life involving sex. I didn't rank them all just by that, thank you very much. Coming to Equestria and meeting aliens with magical powers was definitely up there, but you'll have to forgive my primal instincts for declaring the contest over. They weren't exactly using the higher brain functions after all. Andrew, if you could, please, Fluttershy insisted. I sighed, took hold of her luscious hips, and pinned her to the bed with a smile. She squeaked, and blushed cutely. Sorry, Fluttershy, I didn't mean to ignore you. So, have you done anything like this before, or I was slipped into my back with Fluttershy on top? Whoa, I guess you have. She took hold of my shoulders and shook me violently. Passion! Twilight cried. Andrew, wake up! Please, I mean, if you really want to, please, Fluttershy cried. I don't know if any of you feel the same way, but when I woke up, it almost feels like I'm falling off the side of a building into my body. In this case, there was a sensation of being shaken awoke, and when I opened my eyes, Fluttershy was on top of me. Unfortunately, she was in pony form at the time. Hey, Like you wouldn't still be a little uncomfortable with the idea of intimacy with beings who look like horses despite being sapient. Well, uncomfortable about writing it down, anyway. Oh, I looked at the clock with a groan. Fluttershy, it's 3 in the morning. Well, Fluttershy said, Twilight sent you a message. She did. I cleared out of my drowsy state fast and sat up quickly enough to knock Fluttershy onto the floor. Oh, sorry. I reached down to help her back up to her hoofs. No, it's all right, Fluttershy said. She just sent for you urgently. I quickly pulled on my pants and buttoned up my shirt. I pulled on a belt and a very nice canvas jacket Rarity had made for me a few days after I arrived. My shoes were next, simple black faux leather boots that had come with me from Earth. Magical repair and cleanup made it easy to maintain them, and being faux leather, I never offended any cows. Did she say what it was? I asked, as I pulled on my gun. I had added a strap to the gun so I could wear it over my shoulder. As Rarity had made it, I got the feeling I was carrying a purse that happened to be a gun. But hell, it was a pretty badass gun, and the strap didn't even dig into my shoulder. Fashionable and functional. No, just that it was urgent, Fluttershy said, holding her hoof over her mouth. I nodded and headed downstairs for the door. I'll be back as soon as I opened the door, and a carrot shot right for my face. Bwah! I ducked as a dozen more carrots shot over my head. I slowly looked up, and then back at the carrots that had outlined the form of Fluttershy against the wall. Eep! Fluttershy whimpered. I sighed and looked over at Angel, who was pounding his fist on the table angrily. Nice try, I said flatly. The rabbit scowled. I shook my head and looked at Fluttershy. Remember, Fluttershy, a frying pan works wonders, I said flatly. I turned my head back to the door, and the last carrot hit me right in the middle of my forehead. Gah! While rubbing my forehead, I saw Angel celebrating with what appeared to be an end-zone dance. Angel, Fluttershy admonished. I sighed, turned, and ran out the door for Twilight's library. Yes, this is a great start to the day, I grumbled as I went out to the still crisp night. I at last made it to Twilight's library tree, which was lit up very helpfully like a beacon. Panting a bit, as I had run the whole way, I took a moment to catch my breath at the door before knocking on it. A moment later, an equally exhausted Spike opened the door and stared at me with a look that was the epitome of, I don't get paid enough for this shit. Frankly, I was kinda envious of it. I couldn't do that nearly as well. She's in there, Spike said, pointing to the inside. Do I need the gun? I asked. No, but I'm gonna need it soon, Spike grumbled. I entered, bending down a bit before standing up fully inside the library. I blinked as I saw my girlfriend rummaging through papers and scribbling calculations on a blackboard. Twilight? I asked. Oh, good, Andrew, Twilight said quickly. Come over here. I walked over, feeling far more than a little concerned. Yes, what is it? I haven't made a schedule for the month after this month, Twilight said earnestly, as though the end of the world was upon us. My jaw must have been closed at some point, but at the moment it didn't feel that way. Foi? I asked intelligently. Twilight nodded frantically. I know, horrible, isn't it? I stared in shock, but long experience with girlfriends made me choose my next words carefully. Well, it's a problem, I said carefully. Twilight looked back and blinked. Yes, a very big problem, Twilight said urgently, and I need your help to organize it. I need to find time to write out my schedule for the next month. I sighed, put my gun aside, and began looking through Twilight's numerous parchments and sheets of paper. You know, this might be a whole lot easier if you organize your schedule into a single book, I said calmly. I frowned. Meeting with the Hay Association? Why are you meeting with the Hay Association? I do consulting work for organizations to make them more organized, Twilight said. She frowned at me for a moment. Didn't I tell you that? Might have skipped my mind. I've been a bit busy myself, I said patiently, sorting through more papers. How busy have you been? I made out your schedule myself, so you've got plenty of free time, Twilight said, organizing her papers into a single pile with a bit of magic. I've actually been meaning to talk to you about that, all this free time. It's kind of the nature of my work, Twilight, I said back. I frowned as I read through the numerous books Twilight had on her to-do list. Certainly, I read a lot myself, but she plotted it down practically to the picosecond how long it would take to read each one. Contract work. I only get a job when ponies need me. Still, there's so much to do, and you really should make more efficient use of your time, Twilight said. Right, all that wasted time sleeping, I said with a little wink. Twilight shook her head. If only I could eliminate that completely, she sighed wistfully. I rolled my eyes and returned to my search. Not that I didn't understand her frustration, but, well, she may have been nice and a kick-ass unicorn, but my girlfriend had her own foibles. Same as anyone else, really. And it wasn't like I was free of them myself. Sometime later, after reading through her very, very extensive schedule, I thought I had found what she was looking for. Okay, how about dropping the meeting with the Ponyville Birdwatchers Association? I suggested, holding up a piece of her schedule. Twilight frowned and checked a few other pieces of paper. She shook her head. I can't. I had to reschedule it last month. And they're always so flighty, I suggested. Twilight gave me a scowl. This isn't a time for jokes, Andrew. This isn't the time to be awake, either, I yawned. Twilight sighed. What else is there? She asked. I shuffled through more papers in my pile as she went back to hers. Well, you could always cancel out on the Apple family picnic, I suggested. Oh, no, I can't, Twilight said. Why not? Applejack would understand, I said. You could just reschedule. Yeah, but the only other time I would have would be... She trailed off. I looked at her. What? Our date, Twilight said, looking a bit embarrassed. Our, fourth date, actually. We discussed our family histories and relationships then. At my blank expression, she continued. Our first date consisted of finding out mutual and differing interests. Second date consisted of experimenting with those interests to see which are compatible between both of us and which are not. Third would be to explore some of our psychological hang-ups. Fourth is our issues of family. You really planned that far ahead? I asked in disbelief. Do you even listen to me? Twilight asked, exasperated. I've planned this out to the letter so our relationship has the best chance of succeeding. Well, didn't you think to ask me about this? I asked, irritated. I mean, I'm in this too. Do you have a problem with the progression of events? Twilight asked. I thought about it. I guess I had noticed the general theme of each outing's conversation, driven by Twilight. I had taken it in stride because we were enjoying ourselves. Well, no, but... Then what's the problem? Twilight demanded. She stomped her hooves on the floor angrily. I have so much to keep track of that right now, it feels like the entire thing is going to fall apart. I sighed and wrapped my arms around her neck to hug her. Look, there are times you stand up for yourself in a relationship, like if your partner is emotionally manipulating you. And times you just comfort them because they're not playing a power game. They're just frustrated due to who they are. This was the latter. Relax, Twilight. It's not the end of the world, I said, bumping my head against hers. You've already handled that, remember? Twice. I'm just a little sleep-deprived right now, that's all. She sighed back. Right, sorry, she said softly. I smiled at her. Relax. We'll find some time somewhere, really, I insisted. We can talk about all that other stuff later. Yeah, sometimes you didn't need to just bang through everything in one conversation. It can be exhausting. When I find the time, Twilight said, looking over her schedule. My shoulders drooped. All right, then we find the time and then I'm going to sleep. Forever, I said in my best Pinkie Pie impression. Twilight giggled and pulled away. Okay. It was... hell, I don't know how long it was. All I know is that one moment I'm looking outside at the night. Then I yawned, and when I looked next, I looked back out. How long has the sun been up? I blinked rapidly and winced. Okay, I've got it, Twilight said cheerfully. I started and looked at Twilight, who was pacing around with a triumphant look on her face. I just have to reschedule lunch with Pinkie Pie, move up the meeting with the Hay Association, and I'll have plenty of time to plan for next month. Good, I said, covering my mouth while I yawned. Twilight smiled at me. Thanks for your help, Andrew. I blinked, but I didn't do anything. You helped me eliminate several possibilities. That's always helpful, Twilight said cheerfully. I smiled back, leaning over. I rested my chin on my fist. Good, I yawned. Good thing I don't have any work to do today. I smiled at her. We could have a date 3 today if you'd like. Andrew Shepard, I just reshuffled half my schedule today, Twilight said wearily. I don't have the time or energy to do it. Okay, it was just a thought, I said, my hands held up. Sorry. My schedule is pretty much set, she said. She looked apologetic. I'm very sorry, but there's just no way I can make time today. The wind began to pick up, which was weird, seeing how we were inside and the windows were shut. An orb of light appeared in the center of the room, glowing and pulsing as wind swirled around it furiously. Pieces of paper and parchment danced around as the orb grew in size as bolts of lightning streaked from it. Then, with a final flash, another purple unicorn in a body-hugging rubber suit, crazy hairstyle, and eye patch appeared. She rose up on her hooves and looked around. "Twilight! Andrew!" she cried. "Not today," I quipped. I would have come up with something better, but my weird shit-o-meter had just broken. Plus, I was still tired. "Twilight, you've got to listen to me," the other Twilight cried. "Who are you? I mean, you're me, but I'm me too. How could there be two me's? It's not scientifically possible. You are not scientifically possible," Twilight gasped. "I'd say she's from the future," said I, sounding far more calm than I really felt. I wasn't even sure I was awake. He usually dreams with two Twilights involve them both in her sexy human form and whipped cream. "Hey, I have my tastes. You have yours." "Yes, I'm from the future," Future Twilight confirmed. My Twilight gasped. "Oh geez, what happened to you? You look terrible. The future must be awful. Is there some kind of horrible pony war? Did humans invade?" she gasped. "How has my relationship with Andrew progressed?" "Actually, I'm from next Tuesday morning, but that's not important right now," the Future Twilight said gravely. "Now, you really need to listen. So the humans are going to invade next Tuesday?" I would have expressed a little confusion and offense at that, but Future Twilight interrupted me. "No, they don't," Future Twilight said. "Look, I need to—" "How did I travel back anyway?" Twilight asked. "The time spells are found in the Star-Swirl the Bearded Wing of the Royal Library," Future Twilight said quickly. "Why'd you come back in time then?" I decided to cut to the chase, as Twilight was taking a breath to prepare for a whole new slew of questions. "I don't have much time, so I need to tell you this. Something vitally important," Future Twilight said. What happens next Tuesday?" Twilight asked eagerly. Future Twilight took a deep breath as she began to glow again. "Whatever you do, no matter what, you absolutely must not—" And then she was gone, leaving myself and Twilight both feeling mighty confused. Well, confused and miffed. "Humans invade?" I asked, offended. "Why would you leap to that conclusion?" "It's not like it'd be your fault," Twilight protested. "We are heavily armed and well organized for such an invasion. It just seemed like a possibility." "You could have asked something else," I said flatly. I then had another possibility hit my mind. Unless you like the idea of humanity invading and making you run around in skin-tight latex and an eye patch, I said suspiciously. Twilight blushed heavily and shook her head. "That's ridiculous. Right now we have bigger problems." She turned and dashed for the door. "Come on, we need to warn every pony." I sighed and got up. "It'd be a lot easier to save the world on a full stomach, Twilight." "Well, unless you'd like me to mention Future Twilight's hot attire," I suggested. Twilight blinked and looked at me with a raised eyebrow. "It was hot?" she asked. I blushed and coughed furiously. Well, my hunger point still stands." "I agree," Spike spoke up at last, coming downstairs with a loud yawn. "Geez, you two are loud and you're not even doing anything." "Oh, all right, we'll eat on the way," she said with a huff. "Let's go, we've got to save Ponyville." And I guess this is an author's note, which I'll go ahead and read for absolutely no reason. "You asked for more, you got more. And yes, there's a lot of mentioning of sex, but it's a natural subject to come to mind when you're isolated from your own species. It's not the only part of Andrew's character, though. And indeed won't be the main focus of this arc at all. Could have been worse. I could have focused on him getting drunk for St. Patty's Day. In regards to Twilight's human form, she hasn't perfected it yet, though more experimentation with it, and perhaps other ponies trying out the same thing, will be coming in the future. I'm still not doing a clot fic, though. While this chapter has been completed quickly, the others may not come as fast depending on my schedule. I'm afraid I'm not as organized as Twilight, so hang tight, or, if you want, feel free to write your own adventures of Andrew Shepard. Yes, that is his full name. Blame Mass Effect 2 for influencing me. Talon does not sound like a very realistic surname anyway. Until next time. Yup, I believe that's it for me too. I've got some Pokemon to play. That's what I've been doing for since Black White 2's release. Oh yeah, before I go, I should remind you all to place a comment of a grimdark story I should read for Halloween. Yes, do that, if you would. And until the next reading, everyone, farewell.